If you're a DIYer like myself, you're probably thinking to yourself, the last thing I want to be doing is plastering a wall. Potentially you're going to be sat there every night looking at it thinking, what the went wrong with that? Oh my God, it looks a disaster. Well, fear not. Like I said, I'm a DIYer. It can be done. You can get a good finish. Trust me on this. So I'm going to show you everything that I have learned over the years to get a good finish on my walls. Rightly or wrongly, this is how I do it. So let's do this, baby. Woo! Aww. Hey, Duck, you're right, and welcome to my channel. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. So let's crack on. Let's have a look at the tools that you're going to need to plaster your walls. The first thing is your hook that you put your plaster on, paddle mixer. If you've not got a paddle mixer, you can get the attachments just there probably for about £5 or £6 that you can just stick on your drill. That will work just fine, trust me. A bucket trowel. I need a new bucket trowel because that one is crap. A squirty bottle for when you're finishing off some plaster, obviously. A sponge float. Pick one of them up for about a tenner. If you're a DIYer, this makes the world of difference, trust me. A mixing bucket, nice and big. Most importantly, the trowel. This is the most important tool you're going to need. Don't walk into your local DIY store, go to the nearest shelf and pick up a trowel for a £5. I think this cost about £50. Might seem a bit expensive just for a DIY project. You might only use it 2-3 times a year, but trust me, it makes the world of difference. You've got to try and keep it as clean as you can. That is one of the top rules that you're going to need when you're plastering. Keep your tools clean. But yeah, get a decent trowel, whatever you can afford. If you can get the best one on the market, get the best one on the market. It's going to make your life so much easier. The next thing to do in this little project is to get the plaster mixed. So let's go outside and let's make a bloody mess. Let's do it. Right, got my sunnies on because sun's out for a change. First things first, get a nice clean bucket. You need to clean that the best you can. You don't want any little bits in it, no debris, no nothing, because as soon as you start putting your plaster on and there's a little bit in it, that little bit will just scratch all that plaster that you've just put on, and it'll just put a nice groove all the way in it, and it really pees you off. It's really frustrating. So yeah, get all the bits out of your bucket. So the next thing we need to do is put water in this bucket. Now, how much water you need is one of the age-old questions in plastering. Well, it's one of them things that's just going to come with experience. So try a wall. If you've not got enough plaster, then just mix some more. If you've got too much, you might be able to use it somewhere else. If not, then you're just going to have to throw it away. So then on your next one, you're going to know roughly how much you're going to need. So let's get some water in for the wall that I'm going to be doing. So the next thing we need to do is to add the plaster to the water. Now, same again, this is going to come with experience, but add it gradually, mix a bit. If it's too runny, add a bit more, add a bit more, add a bit more until we get the right consistency, and I'll try and show you the best I can the right consistency that you're going to need. So let's get mixing. Right, so at minute that is way too thin. It's going to need some more plaster added into it to thicken it up. That's not ready to go yet, so we'll chuck a bit more powder in and we'll get it to the right consistency. So that is the consistency you need to get it at. Probably like soft peanut butter, or maybe ice cream when it's starting to melt in a bowl and you swizz it around. I don't know if you can remember doing that when you were a kid, but that's the kind of consistency. You also want to make sure there's no powder left inside it, especially around the edges, because when you start putting that on, that can make it look a bit awful and drag in your plaster. But just stick some on oak. There you go. So hopefully, whoa, when we turn this upside down, it should stick to it. There you go. That's the consistency you want. Right, so we're ready to go. Let's load this hawk up with this plaster. Give it a little stir before we put it on. If it's your first time, you don't want to get too much on. That's probably enough for me. Get your trowel, wet your trowel before you begin if you can, and just spray it. Bit of water on there, get it nice and damp. just so it comes off easier when you're applying it. Right, so the next thing you want to do is load your trowel up. Hold it like that. Hold it at a bit of an angle, just like that, and all you're going to do then is just lift that off. Now you've got it on, ready to load onto your wall. So when you get it off of there, right, so your angle you need, you don't want it flat, you don't want it too steep, because then you're just going to scrape it all the way off. Probably, what angle's that? About 15-20 degrees, something like that. Pressure wise, that's probably the hardest thing. You don't want to be pushing too hard that you're scraping it off, and there's hardly any on, but you don't want to be not pushing hard enough where you're leaving too much on. This is one of the things where experience and practice comes in. So let's get it on and I'll show you how I do it. Right, so I'm not starting right at the bottom, so you leave all the edges till the end. Then all you're going to do, get your angle proper, push it on and slide it up, and it's as easy as that. Load it on again, I'll just cut it side of that again, push, slide it up all the way up to the top, and we'll just feather that in as well. That was a full hawk just there, and that's how much it's covered, and that's the finish currently. You're not trying to get a perfect finish on your first pass, you don't need to. That's what your sponge float and your second coat's for. The main purpose of your first coat is just to get it on the wall as quick and as relatively even as you can. Don't do the edges and your bottoms to begin with. Do the inner section of the wall, so you're like leaving a window frame effectively, and then at the end we'll go in and we'll feather all those edges in like that. If you're thinking to yourself, it sounds like it's raining. That's because it is. It's absolutely lagging it down. It was sunny a minute ago. That's the summer we've had in 2023 here in the beautiful greatest of Britons. It's the exact same process loading it onto your trowel from that side, from where you're going up to what it is coming down. So all you're going to do, you're just going to scoop a bit off, then you've got it on that edge of your trowel. All you're going to do is just get it on the edge of your wall and just drag it in like that. If you've got too much on, all you've got to do is just scrape it off back onto your hawk, and then same again, load it up again, bring it in from the outer edge and feather it all the way in. Make sure you get enough on to cover everywhere. Drag it in from that corner. Tea time! Right, so we've got it on. It is there, it's on. And I'm show you quickly. Look at it. So like I said, it's just a case of getting it on as quick as you can. So the wall's ready for the next stage. I'm going to chuck a sponge float over it in a minute when it's just gone off a little bit more than that. It's still too wet at the minute to be sponging that. So you are kind of limited to your time. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go outside, I'm going to clean everything off, all those tools, because you don't want it sticking to them at all. That's what I've got left in my bucket. So not much left. I'm kind of happy with that. As you can see, it's starting to firm up inside there. So the quicker we get it out as bucket, the quicker we get it off as tools, the better. Plus we're going to have to come in at some point pretty soon and sponge float this. As you can see, you can just see my fingerprints in there. That is still pretty soft. It's not ready for its sponge float yet. So if you're an amateur like myself, get one of these. It helps loads, trust me. But now the sponge, it's not dripping wet. It's wet, don't get me wrong, but it's not absolutely soaking. And as you can see, it is pretty coarse. That's what you're doing. You're like leaving a very light scratch coat on. It's going to help get rid of all those horrible lines and those ripples that you might see in it. So let's give it a curly whirly and let's give it a go. All I'm going to do is just drag it up, and as you can see, it's leaving your lines on there, but we'll get all those out with your second coat. And all we're doing is just swirling it all the way up. There you go. Nice little swirly pattern. You can have it flat to the wall, or you can just have a little edge. Use the edge like you would when you're applying it. Well, that's how I do it anyway, rightly or wrongly. You're not pushing too hard, you're not trying to show the wall what's underneath. All I'm doing is just dragging it over, trying to get rid of any imperfections that you've not been able to get out so far with your trowel. So like I said earlier, there's no need to panic when you're getting your first coat on. You're just going to go over it with this anyway. You want it as smooth as you can, don't get me wrong, but there's no need to get it absolutely stunningly perfect. You're just going to go over it with this. You're just going to get any imperfections out of your plaster that's on, like all, I don't know if you can see all that down there at the minute. I'm not pushing on at all, I'm just dragging it along the wall, taking it along nice and easy. So there you can see where I've been with the sponge. So all I'm going to do now is get my trowel, start at my edges, and just smooth all those lines out you've just put in. And you can feel straight away when you're going over it how smooth it is. You could, in fact, you could probably leave that as that is. The difference between your sponge and that surface is a whole lot flatter than what it was before I even went over with a sponge and then with the trowel. So going over with a sponge makes the world of difference if you're a DIYer. Sponge float done. Gone over it again with a trowel. That's all done. That's looking nice and smooth, baby. Damn, that's smooth, man. That's smooth. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to mix my second coat. You don't need nowhere near as much as what you do for your first. All you're doing is nice thin coat straight over the top, just to get it all nice and smooth and perfect. But even then, once that coat's on, you're going to go over it again with your trowel to get it even smoother, till it is silky smooth, baby. Damn. I have mixed the second coat, not as much as what there is in the first. Exact same consistency, that's what I've done it at. So it's just the same process as the first coat. All we're doing is just getting it on. So all I'll do is work my way like a picture frame all the way around. Then I'll feather in the edges at the end, and then we'll let that go off a little bit just so it's tacky with your fingers, and then we'll go over with the trowel and finish it off. But so you know when to do it, all you want to do is get your fingers, push it in, and you'll just see your finger marks in the plaster just like that. That's when it's ready to go on your second coat. So let's stop crapping and let's get cracking and let's get this second coat on. Right, so all I'm going to do is just get that on. Nice smudge cut just to finish it off. That's what it looks like. I don't know if you can see that any decent, but that is bang on. Looking pretty fly, guy, looking pretty fly. So I'll finish the rest of this and then I'll show you what it looks like when I've done. Okay. Look at that, smooth as a baby's touche. Looking absolutely brilliant. How do you know when you're ready to finish it off? I'm pushing on that, you can't see it, but if I was to push hard enough, then you're going to see them just like that. That's when I think it's ready, that you need to finish it off. That's when I start to do it anyway. So let's finish it off. I'm going to use my squirty buckle. Got to use my squirty buckle and my trowel, and we'll finish it off. So all I'll do, get a nice little mist with my squirty bottle, like that. And then all you're going to do then is get your trowel. I don't think it really matters where you start from, but I'll start up here. And all you're going to do is drag it along. Drag it down. And then you'll just see the water coming out of it. And you will end up with something what they call fat on your trowel. You can save that. If you see any imperfections, you can just fill it with your fat. And then carry on dragging it along. So that is how you finish it off, and you do get a nice smooth finish like that. So take your time, nice and smooth. All I'm doing is just from one side to the other. Sometimes what I've found is you haven't even got to put any water on the wall when you're finishing it. You can just drag it along and get it looking all nice and smooth, but it helps just squirting a little bit of water on, especially on some bits where you're not happy with it to begin with. You can then just like revive it a little bit and get it looking absolutely fabulous. If you think, right, that looks pretty decent, stop. If you keep going over it, you're guaranteed to make a mistake and balls something up. So with this little section here, I'm relatively happy with that. Can't see anything really too dramatic or standing out that you think, oh my god, that looks atrocious. So I'm going to move on to the rest of the wall and get this cracked out. I see me bellying it out, bottom of my trousers. So there you go, the wall is finished. It is looking absolutely brilliant, if I don't mind saying so myself. Just follow the steps that I've shown you. As a DIYer, I find this the easiest way to do a wall, and my results look great. You wouldn't think that an amateur or just your average DIYer has gone out and done his own walls and done his own work in his house. This is a full room that I've done. Those walls look great that I did. That one looks great that you've just seen me do. So yeah, can you do it yourself? Yes. Should you do it yourself? Yes, but you do need to practice. Do a nice little small area if you can at first, and then work your way up to bigger areas. Same with anything, the more practice you get, the better at it you get. The tools play an important part, especially the trowel. Like I said earlier, get a decent trowel, spend the money and get one. Don't go getting a £5 one because you're going to have nothing but problems with it. But other than that, that's it. It's done. It's finished. I've just got to clean up now because I am absolutely bloody covered in plaster. So, happy days. Job done. Right, I'll see you later. Ta-da, be good and enjoy your sen. Bye-bye.